I'm 75 years old, and I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. For 45 years of my life, I believed that tomorrow was where happiness lived. I was convinced that joy was waiting for me somewhere in the future, after the next promotion, after the next milestone, after the kids were older, after retirement. I was wrong about everything. Something happened 3 years ago that shattered every belief I held about life, about success, about what it means to live well. And now I'm here at 75 with less time ahead of me than behind, desperate to share what I finally understand. Not because I want your pity, not because I want your sympathy, but because I see you making the same mistakes I made. I see you postponing joy. I see you telling yourself the same lies I told myself for nearly 5 decades, and I can't stay silent anymore. What I'm about to tell you took me 45 years to learn, 45 years of chasing, 45 years of waiting, 45 years of believing that someday would finally arrive. It never did, not the way I imagined. You're going to hear things in this story that you might not want to hear, things about yourself, things about the life you're building, things about the future you're so busy planning. But I promise you this, if you listen, really listen, you might save yourself decades of regret. Because the lesson I learned at 72 shouldn't take that long. It shouldn't cost as much as it cost me. And if my story can spare even one person the emptiness I felt when I finally woke up, then this confession is worth every uncomfortable word. So please, stay with me. Your future self is begging you to listen. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because Tuesdays were always my busiest days. Meetings stacked from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. Phone calls during lunch. Emails answered between bites of a sandwich I barely tasted. I was 72 years old, still working, still grinding, still convinced that next year would be different. That Tuesday started like every other Tuesday for the past 3 decades, until it didn't. I was in my home office, reviewing a quarterly report, when my phone buzzed. A text from my son, Michael. "Dad, call me when you can. It's about Mom." My wife Susan and I had been married for 47 years. We'd built a life together, raised 3 kids, bought the house, the cars, the retirement accounts. But here's what I didn't know when I called Michael back. Susan had been at her doctor's office that morning, a routine appointment that turned into blood work that turned into scans that turned into a conversation I wasn't present for, because I was reviewing a quarterly report. "Dad," Michael said when I called, "Mom has pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I don't remember what he said after that. I remember the room spinning. I remember the phone slipping from my hand. I remember looking around my office at the awards on the wall, the plaques, the framed photos of handshakes with important people, and feeling absolutely nothing. My wife was dying, and I had spent the morning looking at spreadsheets. The next 3 months were a blur of hospitals, chemotherapy, specialists who used words I didn't understand, nights sitting in uncomfortable chairs next to her bed, watching machines beep and hum. Susan died on a Thursday evening, February, cold and dark outside, and when she took her last breath, when the monitors flatlined and the nurses came in with their practiced efficiency, I sat there holding her hand and realized something that broke me completely. I didn't know her anymore, not really. We'd lived in the same house for decades, slept in the same bed, ate at the same table. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped seeing her, stopped asking her about her day, stopped listening when she talked about her dreams, her fears, her disappointments. I'd been too busy planning tomorrow, too busy chasing the next thing, too busy believing that we had time. At her funeral, my daughter Rebecca gave the eulogy. She talked about her mother's kindness, her patience, the way she volunteered at the library every Saturday, the book club she'd led for 20 years, the garden she tended with such care. And sitting in that front pew, listening to my daughter describe my wife's life, I realized I didn't know about most of it. The library volunteering, I vaguely remembered her mentioning it. The book club, I think I'd met some of the women once. The garden, I saw it from my office window but never walked through it with her. That's when the question hit me. A question so devastating that I couldn't breathe. If someone asked me to describe who Susan was, not what she did for me, not what role she played in my life, but who she actually was as a person, could I answer? Could I tell them what made her laugh, what she dreamed about, what kept her awake at night? I couldn't. 47 years of marriage, and I couldn't answer the most basic questions about the woman I'd promised to love forever. That's when I finally woke up, at 72 years old, in a funeral home, surrounded by people who knew my wife better than I did. That was my catalyst. That was the moment everything changed. Let me tell you how I got there. Let me tell you about the 45 years of my life that I traded for a future that never came. When I was 30, I was convinced that happiness was just around the corner. When I get the management position, I told myself, then I'll slow down. I got the position. I didn't slow down. At 35, the goalpost moved. When I become director, then I'll have more control over my schedule. Then I'll be home for dinner. Then I'll take Susan on that anniversary trip we've been planning. I became director. The trip never happened. At 40, I was so close to executive level, so close to the real payoff. When I make vice president, I told myself, then I'll finally have enough. Then I'll be able to relax. Then I'll start living. Vice president came at 42. The relaxation didn't. You see the pattern? Every time I achieved something, something bigger appeared on the horizon. Every time I reached a milestone, another one materialized just beyond it. And I kept chasing, keep running, kept telling myself that tomorrow would be different. So I waited. At 45, my daughter had her first dance recital. She was 7. I remember she was so excited. She'd been practicing for weeks. She wanted me in the front row. I wasn't there. I was in Chicago, closing a deal that seemed incredibly important at the time, a deal I can't even remember now. Susan recorded the recital on our camcorder. I watched it a week later on fast forward while eating takeout at my desk. You'll catch the next one, I told myself, so I waited. Again, at 50, my son Michael started high school. He made the baseball team, first baseman. He was so proud. How many of his games did I attend? 2. In 4 years of high school baseball, 2 games. I was always traveling, always closing, always chasing the next thing that would finally make me feel like I'd arrived. So I waited again. At 55, my mother called to tell me my father was in the hospital, heart problems. The doctors weren't sure he'd make it. I flew home, spent 2 days by his bedside, made promises about visiting more, about calling every week, about not letting work consume me. He recovered. And within a month, I was back to 80-hour weeks. The calls became monthly, then quarterly, then only on holidays. He died 3 years later, and I couldn't remember the last real conversation we'd had, so I waited again. By 60, I had everything I thought I wanted: the corner office, the 6-figure salary, the respect of my peers, the awards and the titles and the recognition. But something was hollow. I'd come home at night to a quiet house. Susan would be asleep already, or reading, or watching television in a separate room. We'd become roommates, polite, functional, distant. I'd stand in the kitchen sometimes, eating dinner alone at 10 o'clock at night, and wonder when things had gotten so quiet. But then I'd think, when I retire, we'll reconnect, we'll travel, we'll rediscover each other. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited, until a Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzed with a text that changed everything. And suddenly there was no more time left to wait. Let me tell you the biggest lie you're probably telling yourself right now. I have time. Go ahead, say it in your head. I know you're thinking it. I'm not 75. I'm young. I have decades ahead of me. I can afford to wait a little longer. No, you can't. And I'm telling you this as someone who spent 45 years believing that exact lie. Time doesn't work the way you think it does. When you're young, time stretches out like an endless highway. You can see it disappearing over the horizon, and it seems infinite, like it will never run out. But time isn't infinite. It's a finite resource, and you're spending it right now, every single day, whether you realize it or not. The moments you're postponing, they're not waiting for you. They're evaporating, disappearing, gone forever. I'll call Mom next week. I'll take that trip next year. I'll have that conversation when things calm down. Things never calm down, and next week becomes next month. Next year becomes next decade. That conversation never happens. Here's another lie I believed for most of my life. Success will make me happy. I say this as someone who achieved what most people would call success. I made excellent money. I had the respect of my industry. I retired with more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. And you know what? None of it mattered. When Susan died, I looked at my bank account and felt nothing but contempt. All those zeros, all those digits, and they couldn't buy me one more day with her. One more conversation, one more chance to say the things I should have said decades ago. I had a colleague once, Richard, brilliant man, workaholic like me, devoted his entire life to his career, never married, never had kids, said he didn't have time for distractions. Richard died at 67, heart attack at his desk. At his funeral, you know what they talked about? His quarterly reports, his successful projects, his valuable contributions to the organization. Nobody talked about who he was. Nobody shared memories of laughter, of connection, of love, because there weren't any. His eulogy sounded like a LinkedIn profile. Is that the legacy you want? Words on a resume read over your casket? Accomplishments listed by colleagues who didn't really know you? I came so close to being Richard, so close to dying at my desk, with nothing but achievements to show for my life. The only difference is I got a warning. Cancer gave me 3 months to watch my wife die, 3 months to understand what I'd missed. Richard got nothing. And you? You might not get a warning either. One more lie, maybe the biggest one. There will always be more tomorrows, more chances, more time to make it right. There won't always be more. One day, you'll wake up and realize that your children are grown and you missed most of it. One day, you'll pick up the phone to call your mother and remember she's been dead for 3 years. One day, you'll look at the person you married and realize you're living with a stranger. One day, there won't be a next time, and all those tomorrows you were counting on will be gone. Don't you see? The time is now. It was always now. You want to know what keeps me awake at 3 in the morning? It's not the big things. It's not the career or the money or the promotions I chased. It's the small moments. The everyday opportunities I let slip through my fingers while I was busy planning for a future that never came. Let me tell you about them. Susan wanted to go to Italy. For 30 years she talked about it. Florence, Rome, the Amalfi Coast. She had a folder, an actual paper folder, filled with magazine clippings, hotels she wanted to stay in, restaurants she wanted to try, churches she wanted to see. Every anniversary, she'd bring it up. Maybe this year? And every year, I had an excuse. Too busy at work. Kids need college money. The timing isn't right. Let's wait until I retire. So we waited, and waited, and waited. Susan died without ever seeing Italy. That folder is still in her desk drawer. I found it a month after the funeral. Pages yellowed with age. Dreams that faded before she could live them, because I was too busy. What keeps me up at night? That folder, those yellowed pages, 30 years of maybe next time. Here's another one. My son Michael used to call me every Sunday. For years, when he was in his 20s and 30s, he'd call just to talk, no agenda, no favor to ask, just wanted to connect with his old man. And what did I do? I rushed him. Can we make this quick? I've got work. Let's talk later. I'm in the middle of something. Everything okay? Good. Talk soon. I never asked about his life, his dreams, his fears. I never just listened. Eventually, he stopped calling. I didn't notice for months. When I finally realized, I told myself he was just busy, that he'd call when he had time. But the truth, he stopped because I made him feel like a burden, like his calls were an interruption rather than a gift. We've reconnected since Susan died, slowly, carefully, but those years of missed Sunday calls, I'll never get them back. Never. Here's one that cuts deep. When my daughter Rebecca was 16, she wrote a poem. She was taking a creative writing class and wanted to show it to me. I was on a conference call. Leave it on my desk, I said. I'll read it later. She left it there. A week went by, 2 weeks, a month. I never read it. Eventually, the paper got buried under reports and memos and other things that seemed important at the time. I probably threw it away without even realizing. Last year, I asked Rebecca about that poem. She remembered. Of course she remembered. It was about you, Dad, she said, about wanting to spend more time with you, about feeling invisible. 16 years old, reaching out to her father through words because she didn't know how else to reach him, and I threw it away. There's a book I always wanted to write. I know that sounds strange coming from a businessman, but when I was young, before I got practical, before I got serious, I dreamed of being a writer. I had stories in my head, ideas scribbled in notebooks, a vision of myself sitting in a quiet room, creating something meaningful. But writers don't make money. Writers don't provide stability. Writers don't get respect in the real world. So I buried that dream. 55 years ago, I put it in a box and told myself I'd come back to it when I had time. I never did. The notebooks are long gone, the stories forgotten, the writer I might have been erased. I'm trying now. At 75, I'm trying to write, to capture something true, to say the things I wish I'd said decades ago. But those 55 years of silence, the books I could have written, the stories I could have told, gone. You can't get them back. And then there's my father. Before he died, he asked me for one thing. Come fishing with me, like when you were a boy. Simple request. One afternoon at the lake. Father and son, the way we used to be. Soon, Dad, I said. Things are crazy at work right now. Maybe next month. He died 6 weeks later. We never went fishing. And every time I drive past a lake now, I think about what that afternoon could have meant, the conversations we could have had, the memories we could have made. All traded for a meeting I can't remember, a deal that doesn't matter, a tomorrow that never came. After Susan died, I sat in our empty house for weeks, just sat there, looking at the walls, the photographs, the furniture we'd picked out together decades ago. I was 72 years old. Retired by force. I couldn't focus on work anymore. Lost. I didn't know who I was without a job title. Broken. I finally saw what my life had really been, and I had a choice. I could spend my remaining years wallowing in regret, drowning in the should-haves and could-haves, or I could change. At 72, with however many years I had left, I chose to change. It wasn't easy. The first thing I did was simple. I called Michael, not to ask for anything, not to talk about logistics or finances, just to ask how he was, really ask. There was silence on the other end of the line. He didn't know what to say. After years of rushed conversations, my sudden interest confused him. But we talked for 2 hours that first night, and we've talked every week since. I started saying no, No to obligations that drained me. No to people who only wanted my time without giving anything back. No to the constant pressure to be productive, useful, busy. For the first time in my adult life, I gave myself permission to just be. I took the trip to Italy, alone. I walked the streets Susan had dreamed about. I ate at the restaurants she'd circled in those magazine clippings. I sat in the churches she wanted to see. It was bittersweet. Every beautiful moment reminded me that she should have been there, that we should have done this together 30 years ago. But I went. I stopped waiting. I started writing. Nothing impressive, just words on pages. Stories I'd carried for decades, finally let out into the light. Nobody will probably read them. That's okay. They're not for anyone else. They're for the boy I used to be, the one who dreamed of being a writer before the world convinced him to be practical. I walk more now, slowly. My knees aren't what they used to be. But I notice things. Trees I've passed thousands of times without seeing. Birds I never took the time to identify, neighbors I never stopped to meet. The world is so much richer when you're not rushing through it. Here's what I want you to understand. I'm happier now, at 75, with less time ahead of me than I was at 45, when I thought I had all the time in the world. That sounds impossible. It's true, because happiness isn't about how many years you have, it's about how you spend them. At 45, I had decades ahead of me, and I wasted every single day waiting for a future that never arrived. At 75, I might have a few years left, maybe more, maybe less, but I'm here now, present, awake, finally living instead of planning to live. Now let me talk to you. Yes, you, whoever you are, wherever you are, however old you are, I need to ask you something. If you died tomorrow, would you be satisfied with the life you've lived so far? Not the life you're planning to live someday. Not the life you'll start when conditions are right. The life you're living right now. Would you be satisfied? Would you look back at your days and feel peace? Or would you feel the same hollow regret I felt sitting in that funeral home? Be honest. I know what you're thinking, but I have responsibilities. I can't just drop everything. I have bills, obligations, people depending on me. I'm not telling you to abandon your responsibilities. I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow and move to a beach. I'm telling you something much simpler. Stop waiting. Stop telling yourself that happiness lives in the future. Stop postponing the things that actually matter. You can work and still be present for your family. You can have ambition and still nurture your relationships. You can plan for tomorrow and still live today. These aren't mutually exclusive. But you have to choose. Every single day you have to choose. You're thinking, you're different from me. You're thinking, I won't let it get that bad. I'll catch myself before I waste 45 years. Will you? Because I thought the same thing. At 30, I thought I had it under control. At 40, I thought I'd course correct soon. At 50, I thought there was still plenty of time. At 60, I thought retirement would fix everything. The years slip by faster than you think. Decades disappear while you're busy planning, and suddenly you're 72, standing in a funeral home, realizing you never really knew the person you promised to love forever. That's not a future you want. Trust me, I've lived it. Here's what I need you to understand. The people you love won't wait forever. Your parents are getting older. Every day they're here is a gift you're probably taking for granted. Your children are growing up. The moments you're missing now won't circle back for a second chance. Your partner is beside you today, but life is fragile. There are no guarantees. That phone call you've been meaning to make it today. That trip you've been postponing, book it now. That conversation you've been avoiding, have it before it's too late. Because here's what nobody tells you when you're young. You don't get a warning. Most people don't get 3 months to watch their life choices play out. Most people don't get a catalyst event that forces them to wake up. Some people just run out of time, and all those tomorrows they were counting on disappear in an instant. Don't be one of them. Don't take 45 years to learn what I'm telling you right now. If I could go back and talk to my 30-year-old self, here's what I would say. Stop. Stop trying to impress people who don't matter. Half the people I worked so hard to impress, I can't even remember their names now. The titles and achievements that seemed so important, dust, forgotten, meaningless. Stop sacrificing your health for your career. Your body keeps score. Every skipped meal, every sleepless night, every stressful hour, it adds up, and eventually it comes due. Stop putting off joy until someday. Someday is a lie, a comforting fiction we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of change. Someday never comes. Stop treating your loved ones like they'll always be there. They won't. I promise you, they won't. And when they're gone, no success in the world will fill that emptiness. Stop saying yes to everything. Every yes to something that doesn't matter is a no to something that does. Guard your time like it's the precious, non-renewable resource it is. Start calling your parents more often, even when you're busy, especially when you're busy. One day that phone number won't connect anymore, and you'll give anything to hear their voice one more time. Start being present for the small moments, the dance recitals, the Sunday dinners, the random Tuesday afternoons. These are the moments that matter. These are the moments you'll remember when everything else fades. Start taking the trips you dream about. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait until you have more money. Don't wait until the kids are older. Go now while you can. Start doing the things that scare you. Write the book. Start the business. Have the hard conversation. Learn the new skill. Fear fades. Regret doesn't. Start saying no to obligations that drain you. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your time. Protect your energy for the things and people that truly matter. Start living as if time is limited, because it is. Every single day you wake up is one less day you have. Treat it accordingly. Here's my challenge to you. Right now, today, before you close this video, I want you to do something. Think of one person you've been meaning to call. Call them today. Don't text. Call. Think of one thing you've been postponing. Take one small step toward it today, not tomorrow, today. Think of one conversation you've been avoiding. Have it this week before you talk yourself out of it again. If you want to spend more time with your children, put it on the calendar. Block it off like you would any other important meeting, because it is an important meeting, the most important meeting you'll ever have. If you want to travel, start planning. Pick a destination, research flights. Take the first step. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment doesn't exist. If you want to change careers, start exploring. Talk to people in the field. Update your resume. Apply for one job, just one. See what happens. If you want to repair a broken relationship, reach out. Send the message. Make the call. Pride is a luxury you can't afford. If you want to create something, write, paint, build, make, start today. Not when you have more time, not when conditions are better, today. Because here's the truth nobody wants to accept. You might not get tomorrow, and even if you do, tomorrow will bring its own obstacles, its own excuses, its own reasons to postpone. The only moment you have is this one. Use it. I'm 75 now. I've been living intentionally for 3 years. 3 years out of 75. That's barely 4% of my life. And these have been the best 3 years of my life. That should tell you something. 3 years of presence, 3 years of connection, 3 years of finally living instead of planning to live. More fulfilling than the 45 years of striving that came before. But I would give anything, to have those 45 years back, to have started at 30 instead of 72, to have been present for my children's childhoods, to have known my wife, really known her, before it was too late, to have sat by that lake with my father, fishing poles in hand, just being together. Those years are gone. I can't reclaim them. All I can do is tell you my story and hope, genuinely hope, that you hear it, that you actually listen, that somewhere in these words you find the push you need to start living before your own regrets pile up too high to climb. I'm not bitter anymore. I was for a while. Angry at myself for wasting so much time, angry at the world for selling me lies about success and achievement, angry at the clock for running out when I finally understood how to live. But bitterness is just another way of wasting time, so I let it go. Now I wake up each morning grateful, grateful for another day, grateful for the chance to connect with my children, grateful for the words I'm finally writing, grateful for the walks I take, slowly, noticing everything, grateful that I woke up at all. Even if it was almost too late, here's what I've learned. The irony of life is this. When you understand that time is limited, you finally start to live. You stop wasting days on things that don't matter. You stop postponing joy. You stop sleepwalking through your own existence. Death taught me how to live. My wife's death, my father's death, the looming shadow of my own. I wish I had learned it sooner. I wish someone had told me what I'm telling you now. Maybe they did. Maybe I just wasn't ready to hear it. I hope you're ready. I hope these words land differently for you than they would have landed for me at 30, at 40, at 50. I hope you're the person who actually listens, who actually changes, who breaks the cycle of waiting and postponing and planning for a future that might never come. You have a choice right now, this moment, today. You can close this video and go back to your life exactly as it was, back to the busy schedule, back to the endless planning, back to the comfortable lie that there will always be more time. You can keep chasing the promotion, the salary, the achievements. You can keep telling yourself you'll slow down when things calm down. You can keep waiting, or you can wake up right now, today. You can pick up the phone and call someone you love. You can book that trip you've been dreaming about. You can have that conversation you've been avoiding. You can start living the life you've been postponing. The choice is yours. It was always yours. I wasted 45 years making the wrong choice, over and over again, day after day, until there was barely any time left. Don't follow my path. Forge your own. Live now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when things calm down. Now. Because someday is today. It was always today. Every single day, someday was today. I just didn't see it. Don't make my mistake. The life you want to live is waiting for you on the other side of action, on the other side of fear, on the other side of all the excuses you tell yourself. Take the first step today. The clock is ticking. What are you going to do with your time? If this story resonated with you, I hope you'll share it. Not for me. I'm 75. I don't need views or likes or subscribers. But there's someone in your life who needs to hear this. Someone who's postponing their own happiness. Someone who's waiting for someday. Someone who's making the same mistakes I made. Share it with them. Maybe it'll be the wake-up call they need. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like this. More truths from people who learned things the hard way. More warnings from those of us who are running out of time. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you're going to do differently, what phone call you're going to make, what trip you're going to take, what conversation you're finally going to have. I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Your time is precious. Thank you for spending some of it with me. Now go live while you still can.